The Robert Belz Memorial Cemetery. I have heard for many years now that some animals have a sixth sense. They can sense danger, natural disasters, and/or changes in weather, among many other things. Like geese flying south for the winter. Like cows laying down when it's about to rain. And that dogs can see spirits. You know, ghosts. I can somewhat believe the first two, because after all, I've actually seen them. I never believed the seeing ghosts thing about dogs though. I never believed in ghosts, spirits, or anything paranormal. Until recently. About a week ago, my wife Barbara and I, my name's Tom by the way, we had planned a nice relaxing day at the beach. Given the fact that we just so happened to be off on the same day, it's something that rarely ever happens. Barbara is a teller at the bank in town, and I am the night manager at Wally World, a department store in the next town over. Anyway, we finally had a day off together. Barbara had packed a picnic lunch, you know, sandwiches, chips, little pieces of fruit, and a cooler full of sodas and water. We bought everything at our favorite little grocery store in town, Barnaby's. I love that place. Anyway, she also prepared 2 travel mugs of coffee, one for her, and one for me. We were ready for Shower Beach. That's not the real name of it though, but it does rhyme with the real name. We just call it that to amuse ourselves, and because it has a full shower facility on site. Anyway, we also have a dog, Gremlin. Gremlin is a 2-year-old Chihuahua Terrier mix, brown and white, about 15 pounds, and an absolute mama's boy. He follows Barbara everywhere. The kitchen when she's cooking dinner, the bathroom when she showers, he even has his own chair at the dinner table, next to her, of course. He's not spoiled. No, not at all. Anyway, he decided that he was going to go with us. It was about 8:30 in the morning. I grabbed the cooler and basket, and headed for the door. Barbara grabbed her purse, the travel mugs, and a blanket, then held the door open for me. Apparently, Gremlin saw the purse in the open door. He knew exactly what that meant. He's a very smart dog. Anyway, I guess he decided that he was going to go bye-byes too, ran out the door, almost tripping me, and sat by the passenger side door of the truck. You guessed it, Barbara's door. I loaded the stuff in the back of the Blazer, as Barbara opened her door. Yes Gremmy, you can come too, she said smiling. Gremlin got in, wagging his tail. Barbara got in herself, as I did the same. All 3 of us then made the 45-minute drive to Shower Beach. Gremlin sat on her lap of course, and went to sleep. Barbara and I talked, laughed, and listened to music. Not my kind of music, no, her kind of music. Michael Bolton music. When we got to the beach, I had the overwhelming urge to listen to Slayer, Metallica, or even Ozzy, just to feel like a man again. Anyway, we got to the beach, unloaded the truck, went down to the sand, and enjoyed the next 4 hours, spending time together, running around playing with the dog, getting our feet wet in the water, eating lunch, then relaxing on the blanket. Gremlin as well. I was lying there, with my eyes closed. Barbara was doing the same, as Gremlin sat there checking out the girl dogs, I assume. Now, I'm sure many, if not all of you, have been to the beach at some point in your life, and you've laid down and closed your eyes. You can still feel the heat from the sun beating down on you, right? Well, as I laid there, sun beating down on me, it suddenly faded into a brisk blanket of cold air. I opened my eyes to see the sky quickly turning gray, and a large patch of intensely black clouds off in the distance. I tapped Barbara on the shoulder, to get her attention, and said, "There's a bad storm coming, babe. We've got to get out of here." She looked up at the sky, and quickly agreed. We grabbed all our belongings, and ran to the truck, as many other people on the beach did the same. Gremlin right beside us. We threw the stuff in the back of the truck, and quickly hopped in. Gremlin jumped in the back seat, and laid down, which was odd. Anyway, I started her up, and began driving out of the parking lot. The fog then rolled in, completely out of nowhere. And I'm not talking a little bit of fog. No, I'm talking barely see an inch in front of your car fog. There was no fog when we were down on the sand. Where did this crap come from? I thought to myself. The best way I can describe it is, it looked like a scene from that Stephen King movie The Mist, only worse. Anyway, I drove like a snail, creeping down the road, barely able to see where I was going. You could see lightning bolts flashing within the fog, and hear thunder booming in the distance. It never rained though, which too was odd. Gremlin then began to whine, just a little bit. "It's okay boy," Barbara said to him, then turned around, reached between the seats, and rubbed his head. "Wanna come sit with mom?" she asked him. Gremlin did not move, which was very, very odd. "Okay," she said, "have it your way," then turned back around. About 20 minutes into driving in the fog, it just disappeared, just like that. The fog was gone, and the day was bright and sunny again. I couldn't even see it in my rearview mirror. The image shown in the mirror was that of a bright sunny day, like the fog or the storm never existed. Where did the fog go? Barbara asked. I don't know, but that kind of creeped me out, I answered. Gremlin then barked from the back seat. I guess it creeped him out too. Anyway, we drove for about 10 more minutes, passing familiar buildings, gas stations, and other businesses. Now, brace yourself. This is where it gets weird. You see, Barbara and I have made this trip to and from Shower Beach many, many times before, so we knew the layout of the road pretty good. I mean, where all the stoplights were, places to eat, gas stations, and landmarks. But we did not remember what came next. As I was driving along, talking to Barbara, not really paying attention to the road, we suddenly came upon a stoplight that was never there before, at the beginning of what should have been an old dirt field, but was now an old rundown cemetery. I slammed on the brakes to avoid running the red light. Gremlin slid off the back seat, hit the floor, stood up, shook it off, jumped back up on the seat, and barked, as if he was calling me a dumbass. Where did that cemetery come from, Tom? Barbara asked, slightly confused. I don't know, I replied. Maybe we just missed it on the way down. But isn't it awesome? Yeah, maybe. But it is awesome. Let's stop, she replied. Now, you have to understand that Barbara and I are both history buffs. We love history. You can call us sick if you want to. But sometimes, we like to just walk around old cemeteries and look at the dates on the headstones, just for fun. And this cemetery was old. Very old. You could tell because it was completely surrounded by an old black iron fence, about 10 feet high, and all the headstones were made of stone, not granite, or bronze, like they are nowadays. Anyway, I put on my right turn signal, and got in the turn lane. As soon as I did, Gremlin put his paws on the armrest of the back passenger side door, stared out the window, and whined loud. I then drove about 30 yards to the entrance of the cemetery. Gremlin began whining more intensely. What's the matter, boy? I asked, stopping the car at the entrance. He turned his head quickly, and I swear he looked me dead straight in the eyes, growled, then barked, as if he was trying to tell me something. In retrospect, I should have listened. Anyway, the entrance had 2 large square gray pillars, on either side of the road, with huge gray gargoyles on top. A black iron half-moon sign stretched across the top of the pillars, connecting the two together, with the words, Robert Belz Memorial Cemetery written on it. Now, since the cemetery's entrance was located directly on the road, there was nowhere to park the truck. I had to pull in. As soon as I did, Gremlin began to bark repeatedly, running back and forth on the back seat, fast, hitting the doors hard as he did. Gremmy, stop. You're going to hurt yourself, Barbara yelled, and she never yells at him. He did not stop. He did not slow down. He just kept running and barking. He'll be fine, I said, and got out of the truck. Barbara then turned and looked at Gremlin. I hope so, she said, turning back around, with a worried look on her face, as she slowly got out of the truck. Now, the air outside should have been hot, given it was bright and sunny. But, it was not. The air inside the cemetery was cold. I'm talking goosebumps cold. Anyway, we walked to the back of the truck, opened the hatch, and each grabbed a fleece throw-on that we keep in the back, just in case. We put on our fleeces, and I shut the hatch. We closed the truck doors, leaving the windows down about 2 inches, so Gremlin could get some air, and began walking through the cemetery, looking at the headstones. I got 1734, Barbara said. Cool, here's one that says, 1437, I said. Can you believe that? Take a picture of me and the stone, please babe, I've never seen one this far back before. She then pulled out her phone, and took the picture. I'll check it out later, let's keep going, I said. We could hear Gremlin growling and barking in the distance, going completely insane. It wasn't a, yay, mommy's home, happy bark, it was a, if I catch you, I'm gonna kill you bark. We walked a few more feet, when Barbara turned to me, and said, I'm worried about Grem. Look at him. He's never acted like this before. Her eyes then began to tear up. Now, you have to understand, that Gremlin is a very laid-back kind of dog, and for him to be acting that way, was not normal at all. Yeah, I said, something's spooking him. Poor guy. Let's go, we'll come back another time. Barbara agreed, and we quickly made our way back to the truck. We got in, took our fleeces off, and began to drive home. Gremlin stopped barking, as much, laid down on the passenger side of the back seat, and growled quietly, as he stared at the other side of the seat, and barked on occasion. He totally ignored Barbara when she tried to talk to him. That was really, really odd. When we got home, and got out of the truck, Gremlin refused to get out, so much so, that I had to physically scoop him up, and carry him in the house. I put him down, once we got inside, and he just stood there, looking at the front door intensely. It was about 5:30 at that point. Barbara and I decided to have TV dinners for dinner, and to watch a couple movies on Netflix. She prepared the food, while I set up the TV trays. Gremlin still staring at the door. About halfway through the first movie, Gremlin again began to bark angrily, at the door, then took off like a bat out of hell, toward the kitchen. Barbara and I just looked at each other. We quickly got up, and ran to the kitchen, when we heard Gremlin yelp several times, and heard the sound of dishes and glassware breaking. I turned on the light, as we both walked in to see Gremlin laying down in the doorway, eyes wide, staring up at the ceiling, showing teeth, but not growling. Every single cabinet door and drawer were wide open, and multiple pieces of plates, saucers, and glasses lie broken on the kitchen floor, just like that poltergeist movie. "What the hell?" I said. "I don't know," Barbara replied, yawning, then shook her head. "I've had enough for today. I'm tired. I'm going to go lay down, hon," she said. "Okay, babe. I'll be up in a minute. I'm gonna clean this up real quick," I said. Gremlin then got up and walked with her, looking back to the kitchen. On occasion, I swept up all the broken pieces, put them in the trash, shut the cabinet doors, and the drawers, then shut off the light. As the light went off, I saw what looked like an old woman standing by the back door. I just shrugged it off as bad lighting, then went upstairs to lay down. I walked in our bedroom, and Gremlin was laying at the foot of the bed, staring at the door, instead of snuggling with Barbara, like he always does. What's going on with him, I thought, and laid down too. The next morning, the alarm on my phone woke me up at 5 a.m., like it always does. Barbara didn't have to be to work until 9, so I wanted to let her sleep. Gremlin as well. It did not happen that way. I stumbled down the stairs. When I got about 3 or 4 steps from the bottom, I heard a voice, or what sounded like a voice, in my right ear, saying something I couldn't understand. What? I thought, then quickly dismissed it as people outside. I turned the corner to see my dining room table turned upside down, with the 6 chairs positioned like a pyramid on top of it. Again, just like that poltergeist movie. But this was real life. There were strange writings and even stranger symbols carved into the wall. The chandelier was ripped down, wires hanging from the ceiling, and thrown into the back of the couch, ripping it to shreds. "Barbara," I yelled, as loud as I could, then felt incredibly cold, for just a few seconds, then back to normal. She soon came staggering down the stairs, in a hurry, Gremlin in tow. "What the?" she said. "It's gotta be the wind, or a truck going by, something. There's got to be an explanation for this," I said, completely frazzled. I moved the chairs, turned the table right side up, then put the chairs back in place. I then grabbed the chandelier, took it out back, and tossed it into the trash. I came back inside, walked into the kitchen, turned the coffee pot on, then sat at the bottom of the stairs, trying to rationalize what was going on. Barbara joined me, after letting Gremlin out front to go pee, or poop, or whatever he does in the morning, then letting him back in. He made a beeline for his food and water bowls, ate some food, drank some water, then sat at Barbara's feet. When the coffee pot beeped, I made us each a cup of coffee, and we sat on the stairs talking, drinking coffee, until it was time for Barbara to get ready for work. She got up, and said, "I'll be right back, babe. I'm going to go get dressed." I nodded my head, as I took a drink of my coffee. She then turned and began walking up the stairs. I turned to watch her do so. After all these years, I still like doing that. Anyway, Gremlins followed close behind. She reached the top of the stairs, turned right, and disappeared out of sight. Suddenly, Barbara screamed, a blood-curdling terrified scream, as Gremlin began barking viciously, and growling once again. "Tom," I heard her scream, as I heard the sound of a door being slammed shut. I assumed it was our bedroom door. And my assumption was correct. I ran up the stairs, as fast as I could, turned to see Gremlin barking, growling, and clawing at our bedroom door, trying to get in. Barbara screamed again, as the sound of wood breaking could be heard, then a loud thud on the floor. "Tom," she screamed again, more fearful this time. I tried the doorknob, but it was locked, or stuck, or something. I then began slamming my shoulder into the door, screaming, "Barbara, Barbara." Gremlin going completely insane. "Tom," she screamed yet again, "help me." Another loud thud. After the 3rd or 4th try, I finally managed to break the door down. I rushed in, to a huge gust of wind blowing in my bedroom, like a whirlpool. Several pieces of paper, chunks of wood, small knickknacks, and various other items were caught in the wind, and were spinning in the air. Poltergeist. Anyway, I had to cover my face to shield myself from getting hit. Gremlin tried running to the bed, but was caught in the wind, and slammed hard into the chair. I looked to my left, to see Barbara pinned, back first, against the wall, her arms spread out, her head back, gasping for air, and about 3 inches off the ground, like someone, or something was holding her up. "Barbara," I screamed, and began to fight the wind to get to her. Suddenly, an ear-piercing screech was heard, which morphed into words. "She's mine," the voice said, as this incredibly grotesque, for lack of a better term, person, began to appear in front of Barbara, as the wind died down, the items falling to the floor. I was frozen for a second. This person was dressed in an old white dirty robe that was tattered and frayed at the edges. Its entire body was void of any flesh, only the decaying skeletal frame. Its nose and eyes were just black holes that had what appeared to be worms crawling out of them. Its mouth had about 5 broken decaying teeth in it. This person's right arm was holding her off the ground. And oh yeah, it was completely transparent. "Get out," it screamed demonically. Gremlin then barked so viciously that it actually scared me. Before I could even move, Gremlin jumped from the chair to the bed, then leaped at this person. It then shrieked, another ear-piercing shriek, then completely disappeared. Gremlin landing on all fours on the floor, as Barbara landed on her feet, slid down the wall, and curled into the fetal position, trying to catch her breath, as Gremlin quickly ran over to her, and began licking her face. I quickly ran over to her as well, making sure she was alright, then picked her up in a fireman's carry. "Gremmy, let's go," I said loudly, as I ran out of the bedroom, and down the stairs, Barbara in my arms. Gremlin right behind me. When I got to the bottom of the stairs and turned the corner, Gremlin flew past me, stopped at the front door, and began barking again. "What is it, Grem?" I asked. He barked a few more times, and stepped toward the door. I thought it was that old dead bitch again. "Police department, open up," I heard a deep raspy voice say. Gremlin then sat down. I walked over to the door, opened it, still holding my wife. "We've got to get out of here," I said, pushing past Reggie, the town sheriff. I quickly laid Barbara down in the grass. Gremlin sat by her side. "We got reports of domestic violence happening at this residence. Back away from the woman." "No," Reggie said sternly. I looked at Barbara, she nodded her head, and I backed away. Gremlin stayed put. I then spent the next 45 minutes explaining to Reggie what had happened, as the EMTs tended to Barbara, and found she was okay, just a little shaken up. Gremlin still by her side. Reggie then spoke to her. She confirmed my story. He did not believe us, and actually told me that he believed that Barbara was covering for me, because she's afraid of me. I would never put angry hands on my wife. Ever. Anyway, after Reggie and the EMTs left, Barbara and I, as well as Gremlin, agreed that we were not going to stay in that house any longer. We got in the truck, backed out of the driveway, and left it all behind. "Free house, if anyone wants it. Ghost included." I called the landlord, and told him we were leaving. He wished me good luck, and hung up the phone. I didn't tell him about the ghost or the damage. Anyway, Barbara and I both called our jobs, and told them we were involved in a traumatic event, and needed a few days off. They both agreed. Anyway, we rented a room at the local flop house, for a week, or until we can find another place, and Gremlin is back to being a mama's boy. We never did figure out why the ghost wanted Barbara. Yesterday, herself, myself, and Gremmy's self, made the trip back downstate, to see if that cemetery was still there. This time, no Michael Bolton. It was Twisted Sister all the way down, and back. Anyway, the cemetery was not there, it was just a dirt field like it was before. I don't know what that place was, and don't want to know. Oh, by the way, last night, I finally checked out that picture that Barbara took at the cemetery, and if you look real close, you can barely make out the face, and the body of that person, standing behind the headstone. She deleted that picture immediately, and we are never going date hunting at a cemetery ever again. Now, if I learned anything from this experience, it's that ghosts are real, and dogs can see them, even if the human eye cannot. So, the next time your dog is barking at nothing, ask yourself this question: is it really nothing, or is it something you just can't see?